thank you sincerely for this award. It really means something when you're acknowledged by the people in the place you come from. And although I left here quite a long time ago, excuse my throat, I have a little bit of a cold, I never really left it. You know, I've always felt, I have never not felt for a second that I'm not Irish. And I've always been incredibly proud to be from here. And I'm especially proud of the culture that I came from. And it's interesting that I think today is T.K. Whitaker's birthday. That so many people in this room are inspired by, as Colm said, his vision. And to have a vision is, it's not a straightforward thing. It's something that goes beyond the immediate and looks to the future, despite all the dire forecasting and so forth. One of the things I've gotten from this evening here, which I didn't expect to get, was a sense of hope and optimism about the future and how business is contributing to that. When I hear people stand up and talk about what they are developing in terms of solar technology and so forth, and the way that people are thinking about the world, it's very inspiring. And sometimes I think that the world of business and the world of the arts are kind of, they're tentative bedfellows in a way. The artists look at business people and they say, oh, well, they're just people who are interested in making money and they don't really care about anything else. And sometimes the business community looks at artists and says, oh, you know, they're just the people who go out and, you know, put on plays and basically waste their time doing stuff that really nobody cares that much about. But I believe that culture, and especially Irish culture, is the soft power that goes before Irish business to a great extent. You go anywhere in the world and you mention W.B. Yeats, Synge, O'Casey, Wilde, Shaw, U2, Shane MacGowan, whoever it is, they know exactly who that is. And as a result of knowing that culture, they have a sense of the identity of what it means to be Irish. And we are known and revered around the world for our culture. No small thing at all. There are two things, I think, if you can just bear with me for a second. There's two things that changed my life, two incidents that changed my life for the better. I didn't realize they were significant at the time, but now looking back, of course, they did help to form who I am. The first thing was my mother took me to theatre when I was 8 years of age, and I never forgot the experience. And it gave me a love of theatre, even though I didn't understand it at the time. The second was when I became a teacher, and I was teaching, God help those people who had to endure me, but I was teaching Irish to Leaving Cert kids. And I used to take groups of these kids to films and to theatre. And I really loved going with them, and we'd sit in the cafe afterwards and talk about the film that we'd seen. Not just about who was in it, but what was it about? What was the script saying? How did it mirror how we felt about our own lives, etc., etc.? Not as articulate as that, but that's the kind of vibe that we had. It really made a profound impression on me. And it started to make me think about maybe going into the arts in a full-time capacity, which I did as a result of that experience. Watching those kids develop and reveal themselves through the power of art was humbling. They could sit in your Irish class and you wouldn't get very much from them. But when they got into that drama class, you were unlocking a key to their secret selves. And you said, okay, next week we'll write a story about, we'll call it Friday, Saturday and Sunday in your house. Well, of course, acting out, being their own parents, told you so much about where they came from and what kind of lives they led and what their expectations for the future were. That is the power of drama. It reveals the secret self of each single one of us. And that doesn't change when you leave school. Art is so fundamental. It's the mirror into which we look and see ourselves reflected back. I've often thought that artists are they're like the dogs that bark before the earthquake. In Los Angeles, they used to say, if you listen carefully, the dogs will bark before an earthquake comes in a particular way. Artists know what's coming. They know what's happened. They're able to articulate it in the present or in the future. And it behoves us to listen to what artists are saying as much as any economic forecaster. Because what they tell is the story of what it means to be human. And our human story, since the beginning of time, has followed a predictable narrative. Technology may change, history may alter the events of our lives, but essentially the human character does not change. The men who painted on the walls of the caves in Lascaux and Santander were giving artistic voice to their inner selves. We still do that today, whether it's going to the movies or the theatre or reading novels or going to hear music. We need to hear back who we are. Now, in relation to that point of the business and the arts world kind of not coming together, there is a tremendous advantage in business in being associated with the arts. And there's a tremendous benefit for the artist to be associated with business. It's called show business for a reason. Because you can't you can't put on the show without the money, let's face it. The other thing that changed my view of the world was being an immigrant. I found that I didn't really belong in Ireland anymore, much as I see myself as an Irishman. And I didn't really belong in America either. But I thought what I can bring with me is the culture that I was brought up with. So one day, this very briefly, I'll tell you this story. One day I was asked to give this talk, speech, whatever, at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And Bloomberg and Smurfit, Jefferson Smurfit were there. And I decided to speak about what it meant to be an Irish American and how important art was to me. And I thought, we have nowhere in New York that reflects who we are artistic. The French, the German, the British, the Ukrainian, all of them had beautiful sites that expressed who they were culturally. We were in a rundown building on 57th Street, rat infested, literally. And I gave a speech about this, how important it is to establish your presence culturally and to bring into that presence business, to bring business people in and let them be part of a vision of what it meant to be Irish and that it would benefit both of us equally. So I thought about this idea of building an Irish art centre that would be first and foremost a centre for culture, a centre for business and a social centre for not just Irish culture but for every culture in New York. Now that seemed like a crazy idea at the time, that night. And I'll always remember, there's a man here called Tim O'Connor, who was the Consul General in New York at that time. He tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Brother, Wall Street meets Broadway. Let's do this." That's what he said, simply. And he and myself, he and I got together and began the very kind of tentative steps towards building this building. Last year we opened from nothing, and with the help of the business community of New York, the Irish business community especially, we raised $72 million and opened that text. If you look at the list of businesses that have contributed to that, from Goldman Sachs to every major corporation in America, by dint of that policy of bringing corporate sponsorship and donation in, we did the journey together. And now they're as proud a part of that building as we are. It is the primary, if not certainly, maybe not the primary, but you've Carnegie Hall and you've a couple of other places, but you now have the Irish Arts Centre. A huge venue. The reason I tell you that is because when business and the arts come together, we find that we're not that far apart at all. And in terms of giving to the arts community, it's not really about giving to the artists, it's about giving to the community. So if you take a local community and you localize it and you put on, say, an amateur play in a town, what does that amateur play do? It brings the people of the town together. The butcher underwrites it or gives a few quid to it. And the woman in the hairdressers advertise it. The people do the costumes, the hair, the lighting. It brings the entire town together. That's a microcosm of business and the arts right there. And from that moment of coming together, nothing is quite the same again. So if you can donate time, energy, money in a localized way, you begin to change the fabric of society, because those kids will grow up with a sense of what it means to be alive in this world, and with the knowledge that you give back. And by giving back, you contribute to another generation. But most of all, what art does, no matter who we are, it helps us to find who we are ourselves. Because if we didn't have art, we would have no journey to make. We would have nowhere to go. And our ancestors in those caves, drawing on the caves, understood it. Nothing really has changed terribly much in terms of what we know and what we don't know about what it means to be human. But the way we can better the world, Dame Louise was talking about her incredible achievements, absolutely brilliant. But we all have it within us in a small way to change the world we live in by becoming local and by meeting your artist friends halfway and seeing that it will benefit you, not just in terms of the logo on your building, but in terms of your brand as a company. To be associated with that is something that I think people are beginning to recognize. We are a company that gives back to the arts. We support arts locally. The arts are associated with us. So for me to accept this award, the Whitaker Award, he was a visionary. But what I have to say is we're all visionaries. All of us, every single one of us. You're a visionary to your kids. You're a visionary to the teachers the teachers who worked with you. We're all visionaries, and we're all capable of change in this world in our own little way. And I suggest that one of the most powerful ways we can do it is through art and business. Thank you.